The transport ship cut through the endless dark of space and touched down on the silent planet. Marin stepped out alone, his boots sinking into the soft soil. Around him rose forests taller than any he had seen on Earth, their trunks black and wide, their leaves glowing faint green. There was no sunrise here. The sky was locked in night, painted with cold stars and a faint silver mist that never moved. Marin switched on the lamp on his shoulder, but soon realized the plants around him gave off their own light. Some flowers pulsed with blue, some leaves shone pale yellow. The forest was alive, but in a quiet, watchful way. It felt as though every tree and every stone was waiting for something. He tightened his grip on the scanner in his hand and took his first steps away from the landing site. His mission was simple in words but heavy in meaning. He was to explore this world, map its valleys and forests, and send his findings back to the fleet. Humanity wanted to know if this place could be their new home. But Marin had already noticed something strange. The air was heavy and thick, not dangerous but unsettling. And more than once, he felt eyes following him even though his scanners showed nothing nearby. He set up a small camp beside a clearing. A circular barrier lit with soft light surrounded his tent and supplies. He boiled water, logged his first notes, and tried to rest. But sleep did not come easy. He heard things in the dark, branches breaking, heavy steps, faint growls that echoed low through the forest. The sounds never came close, but they circled, like shadows moving around him. In the morning, though there was no true morning, Marin checked the ground around his camp. His heart beat faster when he saw them, large footprints pressed deep into the soil. They were not like any he had studied before. Each foot was wide, with 3 clawed toes stretching long and sharp. The steps were spread far apart, showing the creature that left them was tall and fast. The tracks circled the camp, but never crossed the light line he had set. Marin bent low, running his hand across one print. The edges were fresh, sharp, as if made only hours ago. He straightened slowly, scanning the forest. The plants swayed without wind. The shadows seemed thicker than before. He spoke to himself in a low voice, trying to calm his mind. It is only watching. It has not attacked. Maybe it is curious. Yet deep down, he knew curiosity alone did not make such marks. Something had been testing him. He decided to move further into the woods, to learn more. The deeper he went, the stranger the world became. Tall vines hung like snakes from the trees, glowing with orange light. Pools of water shone with silver, and strange insects hovered above them, wings humming softly. It was beautiful in one way, but there was no comfort in it. The beauty felt sharp, dangerous, as if the forest wanted him to look but never touch. As he walked, he kept finding signs. A tree trunk split in half, as if torn by massive claws. Bones scattered near a rock, bleached white under the faint glow. They were not animal bones he could name. They were long, thin, and shaped in ways that made him uneasy. Once he thought he saw movement ahead, a shadow between the glowing trees, but when he turned his light on it, nothing was there. Only silence and the sound of his own breath. Hours passed, and Marin returned to his camp. He forced himself to eat, though every sound outside made him stop and listen. He checked his scanners again, but still they showed nothing living near him. That made no sense. The sounds, the tracks, the broken branches, all of it was real. But the machines read the forest as empty. It was as if the watcher did not want to be seen. Night deepened, though the planet never truly changed. The glowing plants dimmed in long waves, then brightened again, like the forest itself was breathing. Marin sat by his barrier, staring into the black between the trees. He thought of his home far away, the city lights, the voices of people. Here, there was only him and the unseen thing that waited. A sudden snap of wood made him rise at once. He turned his light outward. For a second, just at the edge of vision, 2 pale reflections shone back at him. Eyes. They were high off the ground, far higher than his own. They did not move, only stared, cold and steady. His chest tightened, and his hand reached for the small weapon at his side. But before he could raise it, the eyes blinked once, then vanished into the dark. Marin stood frozen for a long time. The forest gave no more sound. Only his heartbeat filled the silence. Finally, he lowered his weapon and backed toward his tent. He knew one thing now, more clear than any scanner could tell him. He was not alone. And whatever lived here did not fear him. He tried to sleep again, but every time he closed his eyes, he saw them. The glowing, watchful eyes in the dark. Patient. Silent. Waiting. Marin woke from uneasy rest, his body tense as if he had not slept at all. The tent walls glowed faintly from the barrier lights outside, but the memory of those pale eyes still burned in his mind. He sat up slowly, listening. The forest was quiet, too quiet. No wind, no insect hum, no distant calls of unseen creatures. Silence hung over the camp like a heavy blanket. He stepped out and looked around. The footprints he had seen yesterday were still there, circling the barrier, pressed deep in the earth. But now there were new ones. Fresh ones. They led away from the clearing into the deeper forest. Something had come close again in the night. Something tall and heavy, moving with purpose. Marin adjusted the scanner on his wrist, but again, the machine showed nothing. Blank. Empty. He muttered under his breath, "You are here. I know you are here." His voice cracked the silence but gave him no comfort. Determined to face whatever was stalking him, Marin packed his gear. He slung his pack over his shoulder and carried a compact rifle, though he knew it might not be enough. Weapons were his last choice. His first strength was his mind, and he trusted it more than steel or fire. The trail of prints led him through tangled roots and glowing moss. Every step echoed louder than it should, and every broken twig made his skin crawl. He kept scanning, but the machine betrayed him with silence. The more it showed nothing, the more he felt watched. Then it happened. A growl, low and deep, rolled through the trees. Marin froze. The sound was not close, yet not far. It came from ahead, hidden in the fog-like mist that floated among the glowing trunks. His heart raced. He lifted his light, shining it between the trees. The mist shifted, and for a brief moment, he saw it. A massive shape, crouched low. Broad shoulders, a long body, muscles moving beneath rough hide. Two eyes reflected back at him again, cold and shining. The creature did not charge. It moved slow, step by step, as if studying him. Marin raised his rifle but did not fire. He knew one thing clearly: it wanted him to act first. It wanted to see how he would react. He lowered the weapon halfway, keeping it ready but not firing. His instincts screamed at him to run, but his mind told him to wait. The creature stopped. Its body blended into the shadows, but its eyes did not. They never left him. He took one step back. The eyes followed. He took another, and the growl rumbled again, deeper this time. Suddenly, the predator moved. It darted left into the shadows, so fast his eyes could barely follow. Marin swung his light in that direction, but the forest was empty. He turned back to where it had been gone. Only the mist, glowing plants, and silence. His pulse hammered in his ears. He whispered, "It is testing me." And he was right. The creature had not attacked, though it could have. It was measuring him, like a hunter sizing up its prey. Marin pressed on, deeper into the woods. He needed to learn more. But now every sound made him flinch. A branch snapped behind him. He spun, weapon ready. Nothing. A faint rustle above, just vines moving slowly in the mist. Yet always, he felt the same weight pressing down on him, the stare of unseen eyes. The deeper he went, the stranger the signs became. He found a wide patch of ground scraped bare, as if something huge had rolled in the dirt. Around it were claw marks etched deep into stone. He knelt to study them, running his hand over the grooves. They were sharp, deliberate, not random scratches. This was not only a beast. It was something that understood strength, territory, and warning. As he stood, a faint whistle cut through the air. Not natural, not wind. A call. He raised his rifle again, but this time the sound came from his left, then from his right, then from behind him. It was surrounding him. His chest tightened. He turned in a slow circle, searching for a shape, a shadow, anything. And then, just at the edge of vision, the glowing eyes appeared once more. Higher this time. He realized the predator was no longer crouching. It stood tall. Taller than him by far. His light caught a glimpse of its outline, long limbs, claws like knives, and a chest that rose and fell with slow, powerful breaths. Marin steadied himself. His legs shook, but he stood firm. He did not run. He knew running would turn him into prey. So he forced his voice to stay steady and spoke into the dark. I see you. I know you are there. The predator tilted its head, as if listening. The eyes narrowed slightly, and for the first time, Marin felt something strange curiosity. The creature was not just a beast. It was intelligent. It was watching him as carefully as he was watching it. They stood locked in silence. Neither moved for long minutes. Then, slowly, the predator stepped back. Its body melted into the shadows again, and the eyes vanished. No growl, no rush, no strike. Only absence. Marin lowered his weapon and let out a breath he had not realized he was holding. His hands shook. His mind raced with questions. Why had it not attacked? Why show itself at all? Why watch instead of kill? He returned to camp with those questions heavy on him. His logs grew longer that night, filled with every detail of the encounter. He wrote of the eyes, the growl, the claw marks, the size. But most of all, he wrote of the feeling. The predator had power, strength beyond his own, yet it had chosen not to strike. It had chosen to wait. As he finished his notes, he heard the whistle again in the distance. Not close, but not far. The sound carried through the forest, echoing between the glowing trees. Marin set his pen down and whispered to himself, "This is only the beginning." That night, as he lay in the tent, he did not sleep. For outside, hidden in the black, the predator's eyes returned. They glowed faintly through the mist, steady and patient. Watching. Always watching. Marin woke from another night of broken rest. His body felt heavy, but his mind was alert. He had heard the same whistle through the night, moving from one side of the forest to the other, circling his camp. And each time, when he looked out, the eyes were there. Always watching. Never rushing. Never attacking. When the barrier lights dimmed to mark the new cycle, Marin stepped outside with his scanner. He wanted proof that he was not imagining it. But again, the machine showed nothing. Blank space where there should have been movement. His frustration grew. "You are here," he whispered to the forest. "Why do you hide from the machines?" He walked the edge of the clearing, and his heart quickened when he found something new. At the northern side of the camp, just outside the barrier line, bones had been placed on the ground. Not scattered, not dropped, but arranged. Long white bones crossed over each other in an X shape. At the center sat a skull with sharp teeth. The skull faced his camp, empty sockets staring straight at his tent. Marin stood over it for a long moment, then slowly crouched to study it. The bones were old but cleaned, as if chosen with care. This was not the work of mindless hunger. This was a message. A warning, or perhaps an invitation. He straightened, his hand tightening around the strap of his rifle. "It is playing a game with me," he muttered. He did not know if that thought made him afraid or strangely proud. Later that day, he ventured farther from camp. He needed to understand the land, but more than that, he wanted to know the truth about what hunted him. As he walked, the signs became clearer. Trees with claw marks, deep and deliberate. Stones piled into strange towers that leaned toward the path. Once he found a circle of ash, still warm, as if something had burned a fire there only hours ago. But he had seen no other humans. The forest seemed alive in ways he could not measure. Every step felt guided. The footprints on the ground did not lead randomly. They moved in arcs, driving him forward, always deeper. He realized with a chill that the predator was not only following him. It was leading him, pushing him towards something unseen. As he stopped to drink from his water pack, a sudden crash echoed through the woods. He dropped low, rifle ready. Ahead, a tree had been broken in half, its top half leaning to the ground. Around it, claw marks shone fresh and sharp. The predator had done this, and recently. Marin stepped forward slowly, heart racing. He bent to the claw marks, brushing his fingers over the torn bark. They were not random slashes. They formed lines, almost like symbols. He did not understand them, but they carried meaning. He felt it. A growl rumbled through the mist, close this time. He spun, light sweeping the trees. Again, nothing. Only silence. Then came the whistle, softer than before, almost like a voice calling. He swallowed hard and forced himself to speak. "What do you want from me?" His words echoed between the trunks, but no answer came. Only the sound of the forest breathing, glowing, waiting. As he pressed on, the strange guidance became stronger. Branches broke behind him when he turned off the path, forcing him forward. Stones rolled across his way when he tried to circle back. Every step he took, he felt the invisible pressure of the hunter behind him. It was not letting him escape. It was driving him where it wanted. At last he came to a wide hollow. The ground dipped low, and in the center stood a massive tree, its trunk wider than a house, glowing with soft silver light. Around its roots lay more bones, scattered like the remains of many hunts. Some were animals. Others were not. Long skulls, wide ribs, sharp jaws. Different shapes, different sizes. All had been brought here. Marin stood frozen at the edge of the hollow. He knew at once what this place was. A lair. Or perhaps a shrine. The predator had brought him here on purpose. He turned slowly, and that was when he saw them. The eyes. Two glowing points in the mist, higher than before, closer than ever. They watched him from the trees, unmoving. He lifted his weapon, but his arms shook. He could not fire. Not yet. The predator growled, deep and steady. Then silence. It did not step forward. It waited. Marin understood in that moment. It was not only hunting him. It was testing him. Driving him to this place to see what he would do. He lowered the rifle slowly and stood tall, even as fear bit into his chest. "I am not afraid of you," he said, though part of him still was. The eyes narrowed, then blinked out. A second later, the whistle came again, this time behind him. He turned sharply, but the predator was gone. He left the hollow quickly, his mind racing. This was no random beast. This was no wild hunt. This was a game, one built on rules he did not yet understand. The bones, the symbols, the guidance, all of it pointed to an intelligence behind the claws. By the time he returned to camp, the barrier lights were flickering, marking another false nightfall. He sat inside, writing furiously in his log. His words spilled out, "It is not an animal. It chooses. It waits." It guides. It watches me as I watch it. This is not only a hunt. This is something else. I do not know if it is preparing to kill me, or to judge me. When he finished, he set the pen down and rubbed his tired eyes. Outside, the forest glowed faint and silent. And then, as if answering his thoughts, the eyes appeared again beyond the barrier. Cold. Watchful. Patient. Marin stared back, refusing to look away. His voice was barely a whisper, but steady. You will not break me. The eyes blinked once, then faded into the mist. Marin woke to the sound of breaking wood. He rolled out of his tent and gripped his weapon, scanning the trees beyond the barrier. The glow of the plants was dim, as if the whole forest was holding its breath. His eyes caught movement, a shadow sliding between the trunks, low and fast. He felt his stomach tighten. It was here again. He had been hunted for days now, but this felt different. This time the forest was not only quiet but tense, like it expected something. He checked his scanner once more. Empty. As always. He was alone to his eyes, but not to his senses. Suddenly, a deep growl ripped through the night. Then silence. Marin stood tall, trying to appear calm, though his heart was racing. Come then, he whispered. His words fell flat, swallowed by the dark. The answer came fast. A crashing sound tore through the trees, and then it appeared. The predator burst into sight, a dark mass of muscle and claws, its glowing eyes locked on him. It did not strike at the barrier. Instead, it ran past the camp, shaking the ground as it went. Marin froze, confused. Then another crash, this time on his left. The creature was circling. Not attacking, but pushing him. Hurting him, just as it had done before. He realized with a chill that the barrier would not hold if the predator chose to test it. If it wanted him outside, it would find a way. And so, gripping his weapon and pulling his pack onto his shoulders, he stepped out. The moment he crossed the barrier line, the growl came again, deeper, closer. Branches snapped in the distance. The predator was waiting for him to follow. Marin moved into the forest, keeping his lamp low. His boots crunched against the soil, his breath loud in his ears. He tried to steady his steps, but each one seemed to echo like thunder. Behind him, the barrier lights of his camp grew faint, then disappeared. The hunt began. The predator's growl shifted from one side to the other, always close but never visible. A shadow flickered at the edge of vision, then vanished. A whistle cut through the trees, answered by another from a different direction. It was toying with him, making sure he felt its presence from all sides. Marin's instincts told him to run, but he forced himself to move with caution. He needed to stay smart. If he panicked, he would lose. He stopped at a cluster of rocks and quickly set a trap, a tripwire with a flare. He stepped back and waited. Minutes passed. The forest held its silence. Then a rush of air, a sudden movement, the wire snapped, and the flare burst bright. For the first time, Marin saw the predator clearly. It was massive, taller than any human, with long arms that ended in claws. Its body was covered in rough scales that glistened faintly in the flare's light. The face was narrow, sharp, with a jaw built for tearing. And those eyes, glowing pale and merciless, locked on him. The flare sizzled out, and darkness swallowed the creature again. But Marin's heart was steady now. He had seen it. Truly seen it. He pressed on, laying more tricks as he went. He tied noise grenades to branches, left decoys of glowing sticks, and scattered sharp spikes in the soil. Each step forward was a test. Sometimes he heard the grenades go off, the sharp crack echoing. Sometimes he heard nothing, which was worse. The predator was learning, avoiding the traps. Hours passed in this deadly game. The predator chased, but never fully struck. Marin escaped, but never fully escaped. Both were locked in the rhythm of the hunt. At one point, Marin stopped in a narrow canyon. The walls rose high, covered in glowing vines. He caught his breath, resting against the stone. For a moment he thought he had lost it. The silence stretched long. Then he looked up. The eyes were above him, high on the canyon wall, staring down. His chest tightened. Before he could move, the predator leapt. Marin dove aside as the massive shape landed where he had stood, cracking the stone beneath. Dust rose in a cloud. He rolled, raised his weapon, and fired. The shots rang loud, sparks flying as they struck the creature's scales. It staggered but did not fall. It roared, a sound that shook his bones, then charged. Marin threw a flare to the ground, the burst of light blinding in the canyon. For a second the predator slowed, growling. Marin used that chance to scramble up the rocks and out of the canyon. He ran through the forest, lungs burning, legs aching. Behind him, the roar echoed, followed by crashing steps as the predator gave chase again. The forest became a blur of glowing plants and shadows. Marin leapt over roots, pushed through vines, and stumbled across streams. He knew he could not outrun it forever. His only chance was to outthink it. He came to a fallen tree stretched across a ravine. Without pausing, he ran across, arms out for balance. Halfway across, he turned and cut the rope he had tied earlier. The tree shifted, then fell into the ravine below. The roar that followed shook the air. The predator had been just behind him, and now the path was gone. Breathing hard, Marin collapsed on the far side, staring at the empty space where the tree had been. He did not know if the predator had fallen or simply stopped. The forest went quiet again. For a moment, he allowed himself to believe he had escaped. He leaned against a rock, closing his eyes. But when he opened them, his heart sank. Across the ravine, through the mist, the eyes appeared once more. Pale. Patient. Unstoppable. Marin forced himself to stand, though every muscle in his body screamed. "You will not break me," he whispered. His voice shook, but his will did not. He turned and walked deeper into the forest, knowing the predator would follow. The chase was not over. It had only just begun. Marin's legs ached as he moved through the endless night of the forest. The chase had gone on for hours, maybe longer, but time meant little on this planet. The mist shifted between the glowing trunks, and his breath came in sharp bursts. Behind him, always behind him, came the sound of the hunter. Sometimes silent, sometimes loud, but never gone. He stopped near a cluster of stone pillars, their tops shaped by age into sharp points. It was a natural arena, a circle of jagged rocks, and Marin knew at once that this was where the hunt had been leading. He looked around and realized he was not here by chance. The predator had driven him here. The forest seemed to bend toward this place, as if it had been chosen long before he arrived. A growl rose from the shadows. Then another, closer. The sound echoed off the stone, surrounding him. Marin lifted his weapon, but he knew it would not be enough. He had to use more than strength. He had to use his mind. He lit a flare and threw it to the ground. The silver fire lit the pillars, throwing long shadows across the clearing. And there it was. The predator stepped from the mist, tall and terrible. Its body gleamed with rough scales, each one hard as armor. Its shoulders were wide, its arms long, ending in claws like blades. The head was narrow, the jaw lined with sharp teeth that caught the light. And those eyes cold, glowing, never blinking locked on him. For the first time, it did not vanish back into the dark. It stood there, chest rising and falling, claws flexing. The growl deepened, shaking the air. This was no more testing. This was challenge. Marin steadied his breathing. He spoke aloud, his voice echoing off the stone. I know what you want. You want me to fight you. The predator tilted its head slightly, as if it understood. Then it charged. Marin dove aside as the claws struck stone, shattering it into shards. He rolled, came to one knee, and fired. The bullets sparked against the scales, a few finding soft gaps in the joints. The predator roared but did not fall. It turned, faster than he expected, and swung. The claws ripped through the air where he had been a second before. Marin scrambled up a pillar, climbing with desperate speed. The predator struck the rock, shaking it, but he pulled himself higher. From above, he threw another flare down. The burst of light blinded the predator for a moment, making it roar in frustration. Marin leapt from the pillar, landing hard but ready. He fired again, aiming for the eyes, the mouth, any weak point he could find. The predator lunged, and they collided. The force threw Marin to the ground, his weapon clattering away. The claws scraped the stone near his head, sparks flying. He rolled, grabbed a broken shard of rock, and swung it hard into the creature's arm. The sharp edge cut deep. The predator howled, a sound of pain and rage. Marin scrambled to his feet, panting. His body burned with exhaustion, but he stood tall, refusing to give in. I am not prey, he said through clenched teeth. The predator lowered its head and circled him slowly, like a lion circling a rival. Blood dripped from the cut on its arm, glowing faint silver in the firelight. It studied him carefully, not rushing now. This was no simple kill. This was a duel. Marin grabbed another flare and slammed it against the ground, the light bursting upward. Shadows danced across the clearing. He picked up his rifle again and aimed, waiting. The predator charged once more. Marin fired, striking its shoulder, then its side. It staggered but pressed on. At the last moment, Marin dropped low, sliding under its leap, and jammed a spike from his pack into its leg. The predator roared in fury, twisting to strike, but Marin was already moving. The battle raged across the stone circle. Claws against steel, growls against shouts, predator against human. Each strike came close to ending it, yet neither fell. Both bled, both struggled, both refused to yield. At last, after what felt like hours, they stopped. Marin stood with his rifle raised, but his arms shook with exhaustion. The predator stood across from him, chest heaving, blood dripping from several wounds. Its eyes still glowed, but they were different now. Not only cold, but thoughtful. The silence stretched long. Marin did not lower his weapon, but he did not fire. The predator did not charge, but it did not retreat. They stared at each other, locked in a moment of strange understanding. Marin finally spoke, his voice rough. You could have killed me. Many times. But you didn't. Why? The predator tilted its head again, then gave a low growl not of rage, but of something deeper. It touched the wound on its arm, then lifted its clawed hand and dragged it across a stone pillar, leaving a fresh mark. A symbol. Then it stepped back. Marin's heart pounded. He realized what it meant. This was not just a hunt. It was a test. A test of will, of strength, of courage. The predator had wanted to see if he was worthy of standing against it. They stood there, predator and human, rivals in the night. Marin lowered his weapon slightly, though he kept his guard. The predator gave one last growl, then turned and faded into the mist. Marin dropped to one knee, his body shaking. Pain throbbed through his arms and legs, but he smiled faintly through the exhaustion. He had faced the predator. He had survived. As he sat in the silent clearing, the flares burning low, he looked at the mark scratched into the stone. A symbol left for him. A symbol of respect. He whispered to himself, I am not prey. I am a fighter. And it knows that now. The forest grew quiet again. But Marin knew the eyes would return. This was not the end. It was only the beginning of something greater. The fire from the last flare died slowly, leaving only smoke curling into the night sky. Marin sat against one of the stone pillars, every muscle aching. His breath came hard and rough, but his spirit burned stronger than before. He had faced the predator in battle and still lived. That was something he never thought possible when he first stepped onto this strange world. The mark on the stone caught his eye again. The claw-carved symbol was deep and deliberate. It was not random rage. It meant something. Marin did not know the language of this hunter, but the meaning was clear enough. It had chosen to spare him. More than that, it had acknowledged him. As silence fell around him, Marin forced himself back to his feet. He could not stay here. The predator had stepped away, but the night was still dangerous. There were other creatures in the mist, and they would smell the blood. He picked up his pack and rifle and began moving carefully through the forest again. The glowing trees lit his way, the blue and green colors soft but eerie. His steps were slow. His wounds were not deadly, but they burned with every motion. Hours passed. Or maybe it was less. On this planet, time had no rhythm he could trust. The mist never lifted, the night never broke. Only his own endurance told him how long he had walked. Then he heard it. Not claws on stone this time, but a low sound, like breathing carried on the wind. He froze and raised his weapon. The sound grew closer, then stopped. Marin's heart raced. His finger pressed against the trigger, but he did not fire. From the shadows came movement. A shape. The predator. It stepped into the faint glow of the trees. Its wounds were still visible, silver blood drying on its scaled skin. It did not charge this time. It did not roar. Instead, it stood at a distance, its glowing eyes fixed on him. Marin raised his rifle higher, but then hesitated. The predator had not come to finish him. He could feel it. It was following him, yes, but not with the same hunger as before. "Why are you here?" Marin asked aloud, though he knew it would not answer in words. The predator tilted its head, the same way it had done in the stone arena. Then it looked past him, into the forest. A low growl came from deep in its throat. Marin turned, scanning the mist. He heard movement many feet, heavy and fast. Shapes shifted between the glowing trunks. Not one predator, but a pack of different creatures. Their outlines were wolf-like, but taller, with long jaws and spines running down their backs. Their eyes burned red in the night. The predator stepped forward, its stance wide and ready. Marin's chest tightened. It was not hunting him this time. It was warning him. They were both prey now to something worse. The pack broke through the mist, snarling, jaws snapping. Marin fired, hitting the lead beast square in the chest. It fell, but another replaced it instantly. The predator roared and leapt into the pack, claws flashing, tail whipping. Marin moved to its side, firing again and again. The creatures came fast, but together, he and the predator fought them back. The hunter's claws tore through one beast, while Marin's bullets struck another. Still, more came, leaping over the bodies of the fallen. One lunged at Marin, jaws wide. He swung the butt of his rifle into its face, breaking teeth, then fired point blank into its skull. Another struck his shoulder, but the predator slammed it aside with a powerful swipe. For a moment, they stood back to back, fighting as a single unit. Minutes of chaos passed like hours. At last, the pack began to falter. The survivors pulled back, growling and snapping, then vanished into the mist. Silence returned, broken only by the sound of heavy breathing. Marin lowered his rifle slowly. The ground was scattered with bodies. He turned to see the predator, chest rising and falling, claws dripping with blood. Its glowing eyes met his again. Neither spoke, but something stronger than words passed between them. They had fought together and lived. Whatever bond had begun in the stone circle was now deeper. The predator touched its chest with one clawed hand, then pointed at Marin. It was a gesture, almost like recognition. Then it stepped back into the mist. Marin called after it, though he knew it would not answer. "We're not enemies anymore, are we?" The mist swallowed the predator. Marin stood alone again, but this time, he felt different. He was not just surviving the hunt. He was part of something larger. The predator had seen him, fought him, tested him, and now respected him. He looked down at the bodies of the creatures. Without the predator, he would not have lasted. And yet, without him, maybe the predator would not have lasted either. They needed each other in that moment. Marin set off again, deeper into the forest. His mind was sharper now, his fear balanced by a strange confidence. He was no longer only running. He was walking a path that felt chosen. For days or what felt like days he moved through the endless night. Sometimes he caught glimpses of glowing eyes in the mist. Sometimes he heard the low growl from afar. The predator never walked beside him, but it was never far. Always watching, always near. One night, he reached a cliff overlooking a valley. Strange lights flickered far below, ruins of some old structure, half buried in vines. Marin stared at it with wonder. Shelter, maybe answers, maybe hope. He began climbing down. Halfway, he stopped and looked back. On the cliff above, in the glow of the trees, stood the predator. Silent, unmoving, watching him. Marin lifted his hand in a small gesture of respect. The predator did not move, but its eyes glowed brighter for a moment. Then the mist curled around it, and it was gone. Marin whispered to himself, "It's not just a hunter. It's more than that." For the first time since the hunt began, he no longer felt truly alone. Somewhere in the endless night, in the shifting shadows, the predator walked too. And though they were not allies in the human sense, there was now a bond. A respect written not in words, but in battle, in survival, and in the silence between roars. Marin carried that thought with him as he entered the ruins below, ready for whatever waited inside. The ruins stretched across the valley like the bones of some fallen giant. Broken pillars, cracked walls, and half-buried structures glowed faintly from strange moss that clung to the stone. Marin stood at the entrance, rifle tight in his hands. The silence here was heavier than in the forest. It was the silence of a place long forgotten, where only ghosts seemed to breathe. He stepped inside carefully, boots crunching over dust and broken stone. His torchlight cut across the walls, showing carvings and symbols, old and faded. They reminded him of the mark the predator had left in the stone circle. Perhaps these ruins had belonged to its people long ago. As he walked deeper, the air grew colder. A long hall stretched before him, its ceiling half collapsed, and at the far end stood a great stone throne. Around it were broken chains and shattered armor, as if a battle had once taken place here. Marin moved closer, his eyes scanning every shadow. Then he froze. From the side halls, a low growl echoed. Then another, and another. Figures emerged, creatures like the pack he had faced before, but larger, more powerful. Their spines glowed faintly red, their jaws dripping with hunger. He raised his rifle, heart pounding. There were too many. His hand shook, but he held steady. Then a roar split the hall. Deep, powerful, and familiar. The predator. It leapt from the shadows, crashing into the lead beast. Claws tore through flesh, and the hall erupted into chaos. Marin fired, bullets sparking against stone as they cut into the pack. The predator fought with savage grace, every strike precise, every roar echoing through the ruins. Together, they battled once more. But this fight was harder, longer. The creatures pressed from all sides, stronger than before. The predator was powerful, but even it began to falter. Wounds opened on its scaled body, silver blood spilling onto the floor. Marin's chest tightened. He could run. He could slip away while the predator held them off. But he did not. Not now. Not after everything. He shouted and charged forward, swinging his rifle like a club when bullets ran low. He fought beside the predator, back to back again, refusing to give ground. Every strike was desperate, every breath a struggle. But the two of them would not fall easily. At last, the final beast collapsed, a smoking hole in its chest from Marin's last shot. Silence fell again, broken only by the sound of labored breathing. Marin dropped to one knee, exhausted. His arms trembled, his chest burned, but he was alive. He turned to the predator. The hunter knelt too, resting one clawed hand against the stone floor. Its body shook, blood running from deep cuts. Its glowing eyes dimmed slightly, but it still stood tall. Slowly, it turned its gaze to Marin. Then, to his surprise, it reached out and pressed one clawed hand against his chest. The gesture was deliberate. A sign of respect. Marin swallowed hard. He understood. The predator was telling him that their fight was over, not against each other, but against the world itself. They were equals now. The predator looked toward the throne. It limped forward, dragging its tail, and placed one hand on the stone seat. Then it turned back to Marin. For the first time, its mask opened slightly, revealing a face scarred by years of battle. It was not a monster, it was a warrior, tired and old. Marin stepped closer. The predator lowered its head slightly, then pressed a small metal device into his hand. It was rough, ancient, covered in strange markings. He did not know what it was, but he knew its meaning. A gift. A trust. The predator's chest rose and fell slowly. Then it leaned back against the throne, claws resting on its knees. Its eyes closed, and for a moment, Marin thought it had fallen into silence forever. But then he realized it was not dying. It was resting. Marin stood there, torn. He could leave now, carrying the device, finding his own way. Or he could stay, guarding the ruins with the hunter who had once chased him. He thought back to the fear, the endless running, the battles that nearly broke him. And he thought of the respect they had built, carved out of fire and blood. At last, he nodded. "We started this as enemies," he whispered, though the predator could not understand his words, "but we end it as something else." The predator opened its eyes once more. For a brief moment, the glowing light inside them burned brighter. Then it lowered its head again, as if it had heard and agreed. Marin sat at the base of the throne, rifle across his lap. The ruins were quiet again, the mist outside held at bay. For the first time since the hunt began, he felt no fear. He was no longer just prey. No longer just a survivor. He was part of the story of this world, bound to it by respect and battle. As the night stretched on, the ruins held their silence. The predator rested on its throne, and Marin kept watch, side by side with the one who had once stalked him through the dark. And though no one else would ever know this tale, the bond they had forged would last as long as the mist, as long as the night itself.